I don't know how many Americans realize this, but the whole primary thing is an invention. It's not something that the founding fathers understood or would have promoted. It's not something that you find in the founding documents, nor is it something that for the first however many years of the presidency, this was an issue. You didn't do it this way. I'm Dr. Duke, and this is Constitution Corner. Well, all the news is full this week of primaries, right? We've got the debacle in Iowa, followed by the relative calm of New Hampshire. Although there were a lot of surprises, the fact is that this is one of those great every 4-year election traditions that really isn't steeped in the Constitution. I don't know how many Americans realize this, but the whole primary thing is an invention. It's not something that the founding fathers understood or would have promoted. It's not something that you find in the founding documents, nor is it something that for the first however many years of the presidency, this was an issue. You didn't do it this way. It's something that's grown up, I think, primarily. It's especially held on in the era of TV. It's gotten bigger and bigger in the era of TV because in an election year, when you're not going to have the actual election until November, what you're able to do for the purpose of media is you're allowed to have 50 different state elections, right? So you're trying these out elections. You're warming us up for the real election. It's like having a bunch of Major League Baseball games, 50 minor league baseball games before you actually sit down and watch the major league game. It gets a little tedious after a while, and it's highly politicized and very unconstitutional. Take the primaries in Iowa, where you begin to see the problems of, well, how do you select? How do you decide who goes first? Tradition? Tradition is that Iowa gets the first caucus, but the problem with that, as you saw with the Democrats, is Iowa, now the Democrats are carping. And as much as I disagree with the Democrats on most everything, they do have a point. Clearly, Iowa does not represent the Democrat Party's primary base. It would be like having it in Manhattan, having the first primary be New York City with an emphasis on Manhattan. Certainly that does not represent conservative America. It doesn't represent most of America. So now all of a sudden, Iowa, the Democrats perceive, it's not a big minority state. It's not necessarily yet a state that's been overrun with illegal immigrants the way the border states in the South have been. So it does seem to make an odd state for Democrat politicians to begin their campaigns at. And you're getting yourself into these problems because, again, none of this was the plan. None of this was how it was intended to be. We moved from Iowa to New Hampshire, and as those caucuses have just wound down, some interesting things, right? We find out that 3 really important candidates from New England had interesting shows. Don't forget that Biden himself, Joe Biden, is ultimately from Delaware. Delaware is technically one of those states. We could loosely affiliate it with New England. He fell out of the map. It's really interesting that Biden actually left in the middle of the day, on the day the vote took place yesterday. He left because he knew he was going to lose. He knew he was going to finish dead last, and he took off for South Carolina, where he thinks he's going to be much more popular because South Carolina has many more African Americans, and he seems to claim that he is the candidate of blacks. And I think that has nothing more to do with the fact then that he was Barack Obama's vice president. But you also have, besides Joe Biden, you've got Elizabeth Warren, who was and is a Massachusetts senator, square in the heart of New England. She was a Harvard professor. It's true, she may have stolen her Harvard professorship from a deserving Native American candidate by her lies, but you would think that the state that gave us Teddy Kennedy, speaking of liars, the state that gave us Senator Ted Kennedy would love Elizabeth Warren. She spouts all the liberal, quasi-socialist BS you used to get from Teddy Kennedy. She's not quite Massachusetts royalty, but with that Harvard degree, you would think she would be the perfect candidate. And she's a woman, right? Which seems to be a big deal to progressives nowadays. Let's just be clear. Women were always a big deal to Teddy Kennedy. Nevertheless, you would think that somebody with her superficial bona fides would be able to do very well in New England, and yet she did not. She cratered and fell off the platform altogether. And if you perform like that in your backyard, Liz Warren, it is really time to pack up your teepee and go back to the reservation, because you're going nowhere. You think this was bad in New Hampshire? You think South Carolina is going to get on the bandwagon to vote for you? It's not likely. And of course, the big winner, to the surprise of nobody, well, he didn't win as big as people thought, but it was Bernie Sanders. And Bernie Sanders, of course, New Hampshire is right to the east of Vermont. They're locked together by land, and to the surprise of nobody, Bernie won, but he didn't carry the day as the way he thought he would. So Bernie Sanders right now is the best that the Democrats have, an avowed Marxist socialist who's also a millionaire who honeymooned in the Soviet Union. This is the guy they're going to put up against Donald Trump, assuming nothing changes. Pay close attention to these unconstitutional primaries, because they're going to be used now in the next couple weeks to try to kneecap Bernie and get somebody else in. That's what they're going to have to do, the Democrats. They're going to have to turn on their own leading candidate because he scares the bejesus out of them, and they ought to. If you put Bernie Sanders out there, it's going to be an amusing Trump versus Bernie situation. Trump and Bernie, the two of them just talking together on the same stage. Wow. I want you to go ahead and honor the Constitution, friends, by understanding it. You can go to thenewamerican.com and jbs.org for more info and more shows.